Welcome, everybody. Thanks for making the time to come back in, and we're going to have a little interesting conversation here.
Thanks for having us.
Just want to say, Jonathan, Erica, Nick,
Manny?
welcome. How's Agostino? How come he bailed out?
Oh, the project schedule is a little heavier than, project managers. When they get into the zone, everything else becomes...
I actually don't know many project managers.
No?
But that's what we're going to talk about today. You guys did a little meeting. When was it, last week or something? Or
Yeah, a little impromptu.
Friday, yeah.
a little brain dump, kind of just started talking about the industry and PMs and what's going on and stuff like that. And then you guys came up with some talking points, and then the conversation about let's do a show on it. Let's talk about it. Everyone's talking PMs, but nobody's really discussing PMs, I guess.
Jonathan, you want to give the title of this segment?
Did we even have
pimp?
a title? Yeah.
Are you being pimped out on site?
And I think that this was, and this was really how it, I think it started with
PMP, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nick was very
Everybody's
generous
walking
to say,
around
hey,
with funny hats.
let's chat. And one question I've been asked many times throughout my career was, I went down the pathway to get my PMP, Project Management Professional. The certifications is a long process, and the question was
it a good process?
I love the process. You know what?
Is it different than it is today?
No, the program is the same. But here's where it's interesting is throughout my career, you only know the fundamentals of project management if they're in your orbit. You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. The certification that I went through with Schulich, but there's many organizations out there that do it, it was like, here's the fundamentals based on a governing body, PMBOK is what they call it, and here's the processes that in construction, we skim over. People don't understand scheduling, risk, monitoring and controlling, executing, initiating. It kind of just all flows together. So it created an awareness for me. But the conversation became organic because I used to get made fun of, hey, you're the pimp. Yeah, cool, man. Is it worth it? Does it make a difference?
Can I say being a proper PM is kind of how somebody would fold a piece of paper? And a good PM would be somebody who creates origami, and a bad PM would be someone who just folds a piece of paper in half?
It's a good question.
Sure.
Because you're talking about layers. There's more than just one or two things involved to be a good PM.
Fundamentally, a project manager is an integrator.
Yeah.
When you strip it down to like the simplest of forms, you're the integrator. You integrate everything and everyone. How you do that is sliced so differently. So this is how our sort of
the conversation. I mean, for us at Revolute, part of our internal learning process, something that's progressed over the last, almost 10 years is learning from the people that do it so that we can take that back in analysis and figure out what we can tweak to make better, what we can build to make better for in-field use, for office use. So sitting down with Jonathan, knowing this guy's lineage as a PM was a no-brainer. So now it's, what are the problems you saw on site? What were the problems you saw at the office? How did you handle them? Who did what? When was it done? What tools were used? What tools weren't used? What do you wish you had? And it started snowballing a conversation down into the, there are so many different layers to this onion that we can peel. So let's open a conversation. How do you contain costs on a project? How do you manage the guys? How do you manage expectations? How do you manage materials? How do you manage all those moving parts? How do you go home at night without wanting, how do you sleep at night knowing that that's what you got to wake up to the next day? There are so many moving parts to the PM role. And then on top of that, who does what? How is it delegated? Are you the only PM? All of a sudden now you have other roles within your organization that are that are a part of the management or the execution phase or the plan. There's so many things that are happening, but it's so different for every organization. Every PM that I've sat with over the last 8 years has a different story, and it's amazing because, like Jonathan said, these learning, the education model. There are different ways to be a PM, and then. Okay, great. So I went to PMI, so I'm gonna do it this way. Now I show up to a company. Sorry, we don't do it that way. Yeah, so you got to learn it this way. Yeah. Well, I'll go with the flow because this is a great job. And now you're makeshifting a model that fits into. So now that's the next 10 years but you've studied this, and now this is. I think there are so many different conversations that focus around the project that that could be fun to.
But then there's a whole. I guess it starts. The majority of construction is all old school PM education, where it's just from boots on the ground.
But
right?
what does that mean, though?
Before we get into that, first of all, let's just introduce everybody, share their details so that we know everybody who's here, right? Not everybody's watching the show; they're listening to the show. But yeah, no. So Jonathan, go ahead, share all your deets,
Hi,
everything.
everybody. Thanks, guys, for making this happen. Jonathan Sinelli, People First Leadership.
Got to start a counter on how many times you've been here.
Geez,
Lots, double digits now. I'm gonna probably get the 3.
Listen, it's an honor to share space with everybody. So thank you, folks. You can get in touch with me. JC at jonathansinelli.com, 416-717-4139. JonathanSinelli.com is the best way.
And then on IG, it's
Jonathan A. Sinelli.
Yep.
Thanks.
Erica?
Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Jucho. So I help construction trades and contractors save on operational expenses. You can get in contact with me at 416-605-0193 or the Erica Jucho. It'll be in the show notes.
And I am Nick Bartella. I am co-founder of Revolate. We build personalized software, personalized construction management software, automations. From bidding to billing, we can build something that helps you make life a little bit easier. You can find us at revolate.inc for Instagram, revolate.com. And yeah.
Cool. All right. So now where do you want to begin?
Can we go back to that? I think you said something that sort of triggered me that said
the boots on the ground PM?
Old school PM. What the hell does that even mean?
You grew up into that position.
Sure. Can I challenge this? Do you mind?
Sure.
Because I get passionate about this. This happens so many times, right? And I lived it.
Because jumping out of his chair.
It's
fantastic.
You're a great skilled craftsman, tradesman. You even on site, like you made sites magical. Okay, so now you can become a PM. What does that mean? Well, here's a laptop, bum top. Let's go.
Don't forget
Excel. So what exactly does that mean?
What is it? That means
notebook.
see, then the gap, this is I think why I get so passionate about, is the gap is like, then there's an expectation, well, Jonathan was a great foreman. Now he's going to be a great PM. Well, it doesn't always work that way, right? And the project management metrics in every organization is slightly different. Do you have the courage and the bravery to sort of challenge that status quo, to think differently? And then the old school way that triggers me is like, well, it worked for me. Yeah, cool, man. That was 20 years ago.
But it works for you regardless if you have major inefficiencies. It works for you.
Right.
Maybe it's what they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So then this is how we've always done it. How can you improve on this? Work is good. Schedules are good. Everything's moving along. But there's room for improvement, no?
Always is.
I'm just thinking that process.
Think of it like this, man. If you were a kid and your parents taught you how to do the bunny ears,
Yeah.
but your shoelaces kept coming untied.
Yeah.
Well, when you're 16, you're still doing the bunny ears, because that's what I know. But then somebody said your shoelace is untied, and they tied them for you, and you're like, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm tying your shoe.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't come untied because somebody showed you the way to keep
A
shit
different
together.
way to do the same
But
thing.
that's mind fucking, because
Yeah.
now I'm trying to tie my shoe that way, but I've been doing it this way for fucking 20 years, 2 years, flip it over, flip it up. But now I saw them go around, and it's there's something that's happening up there that it takes change, and it takes comfort of, this is, we talked about this, where there's 4 generations working right now in this space. Revolate is banking on the change of the guard. We believe that people are starting to ask questions around the way they're running projects. The question is, do I gotta keep killing myself to keep this thing together? Do I need to carry all of this weight the way that my father did it, the way that my grandfather did it? Do I need to keep doing that to be great at this? Or can I start bringing in tools to do the heavy lifting so I can focus on making money in business?
Is it a double edge
How so?
where you rely too heavily on new technology coming into the space?
Absolutely. I think where right now there's a big conversation about AI. It's taking our jobs. Bullshit. Okay? And the reason I say that is because if you are letting it take your job, well, it's like It's
It's another tool.
But that's why people need to start wrapping their head around the utility of it. It's like saying a hammer is going to replace you at work. It's not. It still needs somebody to hold it and swing it. Same with AI, same with software. It's never going to replace you because there's always going to need a pair of eyes at the control, making sure that it's the way you want it. The challenge I think that's happening right now is the companies that are selling these tools are selling it from a perspective of, go have a coffee, we'll do it for you. And it's bullshit, because if you let AI do that...
That's not solving the problem.
It's not. It's creating all
Well,
kinds of
it's not even
problems.
advancing the company.
It's creating a shit ton of problems because there's an unrealistic expectation of what these tools are going to do, which is I'm going to ask it a question, it's going to give me an answer, and I'm going to be able to take that answer verbatim and apply it. It's going to give, what it's going to do is speed up the process. It's going to speed up the thinking process. It's going to give you potential answers that you can now continue the research on.
I go back to the double edge. Is it not also eliminating us from problem solving new ideas?
No.
It's not?
So it can. Again, how it's used. So
I'll give you an example. I build a barn door.
Yeah.
It takes me 4 hours to build the first one because I'm building it custom made. Mm-hmm. How long does it take me to build the second one?
great question. Now,
Probably an hour
so
because
if
I already
say-
knew the tricks and trades and I knew exactly what I needed to do to be efficient. So the first took 4, the second took 1 hour. What's assembly line after that, right?
Yes and no. And I'll tell you why I say that. Because AI isn't going to help you build a door.
No, but it could
Not
plan and assist me regarding material I need for volume or what comes in the future.
But
right?
that's the stuff that you shouldn't be doing anyway. But that's the difference. So people are associating AI with the work that my skill. But AI is not replacing your skill.
No,
I still need you to build a door.
Yeah.
But you don't need to do the paperwork. You're not an administrator. You're not an accountant. You are a skilled trade that has a skill that can't be replaced, but is typically bogged down by all the other shit that is associated with you doing what you do that nobody else does.
But a successful tradesperson endorses the power of the pencil.
Okay.
So we all know what that means, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about the tool. It's about what you do before you do the tool.
Right.
Right. So I'm just, from all three of you guys, what are the top 3 things that make a good PM and versus what makes a bad PM?
I can tell you what makes a bad PM.
Yeah.
Because I think I told you this story once. So back in university, when it was my capstone project, I was the PM. And we had to incorporate design thinking, which is basically a type of project management. We had 3 generations, 3 different diverse backgrounds, and I was the PM, but I was not trained in. It was my last project. I was the project manager, and it's not just about the tools. So when I started the project, we were using Asana, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. We're going to be so organized. We had this communication contract, like, hey, don't contact anyone after this time. And, this is how you're going to do an email and da-da-da-da-da. And what I realized is that I thought that the tool would motivate people to do the work that they needed to do. But what makes a bad PM is understanding the skill set of the person behind doing those tasks in Asana or whatever that tool was.
There's strengths?
There's strengths and also how they communicate. I'll give you an example.
That's an interesting topic.
If I say to Jonathan right now, I need you to build the block, like we were talking about earlier, the whole thing of Jenga.
Yep.
Right? And if I say it, and he's like, yeah, no problem, I can do it. Versus if I go to Nick and I say the same thing, someone that comes from a different background will say, well, where are the steps to do that? And then they're freaking out. They don't know how to do it. They have a lot of questions. There's that open door policy. How much questions is more than enough questions? And what ended up happening was I ended up getting so frustrated. I'm like, why can't you just build the fucking thing? Like, why can't you just do the task?
But isn't that construction today, though? They don't ask for the list of questions. They just get at the task and start working at it, no?
Now, here's the problem. Okay, so talk about the Rogers thing that you mentioned. When someone comes on board and they're doing like Wi-Fi, you made a great example of that.
Three-way the world. These little puppies. I'm speaking from experience. I've actually installed these and I love these. Three-way prefabricated inside drywall corner. The first one-piece solution for perfect, crisp corners every time. With three-way, you'll improve your quality, save on labor, and cut down on time. Traditional methods require 3 tapes, lots of sanding, and high skill. But with three-way corners, they install in just a fraction of the time with fewer steps. It is adjustable for any angle, reinforced to cover gaps, and designed to blend seamlessly into the corner. Say goodbye to pesky touch-ups and hello to flawless finishes. Try three-way today and revolutionize your drywall game. Perfect corners every time. To purchase or check out some how-to videos to see the installs in action, visit threeway.ca or connect with them at 306-514-3768 or drop them an email at threewaytheworld@gmail.com. Connect with me, TCL, and stop by the studio and get a free pack on us for anyone to try. And trust me, I'm telling you, you'll love it. This message is proudly supported by the Construction Life.
Okay. Thank you. It took me a second to talk about this. Here's an example. Condo world. Context, folks. Condo world, right? Multi-story, even just say a 20-story condo. The old way of doing the communications within a suite was you would put a 12 by 12 electrical. You put a 12 by 12 electrical box, right? And you'd feed out to the suites to your TV and data, right? And it's evolved along the way because developers have said, I'm not paying for this anymore. I'm going to push it back to the telecommunications company. So now Rogers Communications provides you a 16-inch by, I think it's 14-inch white plastic back box, right?
Okay.
The electrical contractor is left out of the equation. What happens is a skid is shipped to the site based on the number of, if there's 200 suites, Rogers ships 200 suites to site. So as an electrical contractor, you say, cool, got it. What happens next, right? The developer thinks, all right, we've saved everybody costs. Rogers is going to supply these boxes at no cost. Cool. So they ship a skid to site. Somebody's got to coordinate that? What happens when that skid gets there? Now, how do I get those boxes from the ground floor, unshrink wrapped, all the way up? Somebody's got to carry that labor in. It's got to be coordinated. And then what happens, right? There's a scope gap. There's more times than not, I don't want to say always, it's such a heavy word, but more times than not, there's a scope gap because it's like, well, who's installing the box? Is that Rogers? Is it the contractor? Then guess what happens is that box comes with a separate cover, right? It comes with the cover is not shipped with the box. Date. Sometimes it's shipped together, sometimes it's shipped not. So now, who's going to go install that cover? I got to bring these covers to the floor, and is that in the electrical scope of work to install it? Is that it's 4 screws? So is it the general contractor, the developers, right? And then it's like, so there's a huge scope gap that happens here, and what doesn't happen is the communication and the trust and the alliance. So that's, I think, what we were talking about. You asked me what makes a good PM. It's connection, trust, right? Communication is such a shitty word to throw around, but it's trust and connection. I get on a job, and it's like, okay, who's a telecommunications provider? Can I have a contact name? Okay, Jim, how many boxes are you providing? When are you providing them? Because if I don't coordinate it as a PM in the electrical world, it ain't going to get done. And then I got to go back to our foreman and say, dude, I got your back. Know that these boxes are coming on this date. We're not installing them. It's up to the general contractor to deliver 10 to the floor for that floor plate. When they get there, then we'll handle them.
Yeah, so everything falls on the PM at that point.
Everything's the PM.
Like when it comes to the trade is that the task is at hand for the trade to do the work on that specific floor. So obviously the material has to be there on that floor. So that's a coordinating thing with the PM. Whether there's a front, back, or side, or all different components attached to this one scope,
100%.
Then the PM's got to make sure that stuff is on that floor. You don't expect the trade person to go down to the first floor and go, hey, where are the screws for this?
Well, but that happens, right? Because there's a scope gap that doesn't get addressed because the trade's on site, the foreman thinks,
so who's responsible for that scope gap?
The PM.
Yeah.
100%. Here's the question, though.
I agree.
So it is a cliche. It's an overused word, no doubt about it, but communication, because everything we're talking about is a line of communication. So understanding that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but every PM I've talked to, everybody I've learned from, it's about who's on your team and how they actually understand their role. But then there's a third one, a wild card. This is a new job, because no two jobs are the same. Even though I've been doing this forever, I got a curveball.
Is there not a fourth one where on the level of the person, the tradesperson?
Correct.
Yes.
Whether they're entry level or if they're senior.
And then now in today's, I don't want to say that common sense is different, but what I do want to say is there was a point in time not that long ago where if you didn't know, you would try. You would figure it out.
Yeah.
And you would screw up a
That
few
goes
times.
back to the old school.
Right. Today, there's more of a fear of getting that wrong. So I'm almost not going to until I have clear instruction, because I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to make a mistake.
But then you get into Erica's situation where it's like you're bombarded by a number of questions and you're like, can't you guys just figure this out?
Right. So now you have the guy who's afraid to make mistakes, the guy who gets right in there, the guy that's watching all this, trying to figure it out, all of these moving parts. How do you control that flow of communication?
And the bigger the project is, the more layers it is. One thing that we haven't even talked about yet is safety. So at each moving part, where is the safety and compliance part of it?
It's ignored.
Exactly.
I'll say that.
So the Rogers guy comes. The Rogers guy comes on
Oh, yeah.
site, and he doesn't have steel toe boots, or he's not wearing this, or he's not wearing that. Now and then that puts everyone behind. And let's say you don't have the contact information.
And that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go
That's
ahead.
a real-
They would
that's a
never
real-
even step foot
No,
on that
that's
site
a real life
if
example.
they
The guy
were like that.
the guy pulls into the site with a truck, right? General contractor calls the electrician and says, "Hey, man, your boxes are here." Fuck, I'm on the 50th floor, man. Right? Well, nobody's going to take them off. So now that truck is sitting there for 15, 20 minutes until somebody comes down, right? To offload that truck because nobody else wants to touch it. So now he's logistically jamming up the site by sitting there because the Rogers guy doesn't have hard hat and boots, can't get out of his truck. He needs an electrician to offload the site.
I'll scale it down. When I'm a GC and someone new showing up on my job site, I look the person up and down.
Of course you do.
But sometimes some people will look the other way.
Of
And
Well,
that's
that
the
becomes
other problem.
into bigger construction where we know they're famous for that. But then there's still a responsible factor there. Whoever's on the ground floor on letting entry of any material coming in. This is like, it's not the Montreal Olympic Stadium being built here. Like, we actually have to document who's coming in here, who is it, what truck it is, where they're going to go, what bay they're going to offload stuff. That's all documented. So if they're walking in there, they're wearing running shoes and shorts and they're not properly PPE'd, then that's whose fault at that point? That's the actual site super on the ground level's fault.
Oh, hang on. I would back that up. See, that comes back to the PM. Because you're going to say, if I'm releasing material to site, I want to be vividly clear with the vendor to say, anybody coming to site must have proper PPE, including...
Well, they have the signs that say
right?
that.
Yeah, but...
They don't
sure,
enforce it.
Sure. I'm saying, when I release equipment to the supplier, here's the release. It's formally documented. I want it arrived on this date. And make sure the driver calls 30 minutes before arrival so I can be ready for it. And he arrives, or she arrives with, vest, glasses, boots, right?
They probably arrive without it than they do with it. More times.
Yeah.
It depends on the suppliers, right? Depends on how.
So this whole conversation started with, how can we help?
Sure.
What's missing? How do you improve the situation? Because it's definitely not something small scale enough that it's a one-off, and it happens on occasion, so who cares? This is a regular daily challenge that everybody who works construction, top to bottom, bottom to top, has to deal with one way or another. So I proposed the conversation to Jonathan. What were the tools that you wish you had to help? What existed today that you wish existed 10 years ago? What exists today that is missing the mark, that could be better, that could do a better job, that could catch more gaps, could support? Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's more manual stuff, and it's a shift of functions and roles in education on what everybody has to do. So now we're talking about a company understanding a proper organizational chart so that everybody understands their role and function within the company. Now it's teaching communication and teaching team development, and this is what we were hoping to really build a conversation around. It's what can be done, and because we're working to be the name in the industry for that function. It's, you want a tool that helps you do what you do more productively, more efficiently, less with less of a headache, with less, breaking your back or breaking your brain to, whatever it happens to be. Reveille wants to be that name. If you want cost containment, you want to figure out why you're spending so much money, or more importantly, you want to figure out where your money's disappearing because for some reason your bottom line isn't as fat as it should be. That's where Schoolie Mitchell comes in. You want your team to be more cohesive. People to start thinking about the other guy before they act. So Jonathan, we want to build that conversation, that narrative to say that, the old way has built cities, countries, the world. But now can we figure out a way to innovate all that knowledge so that it grows.
Here's the problem that I've only been on high-rise construction maybe a dozen times in my life. It's not my wheelhouse, right? And the number one reason it's not my wheelhouse is it's a bunch of unfriendly individuals. Just for a blanket statement, what I'm saying. And what I mean by that, everybody is in their lane. And they don't care about getting out of their lane, and they don't care about engaging with other people just on a social human interaction way.
When you say in their lane, like
I'm an electrician, I'm a plumber, I come in, I've got blinders on, here's my material I'm going to install, material's not here, I'm only going to finish this much, I'm going to get out. And if you didn't really pay attention, you probably didn't realize that plumber was on site that day.
Gotcha.
That's what I mean by they're all in their lane. So you have a bunch of trades that are all on their own avenue. Right, so it's becomes more challenging because back in the old school days, you had a collective building mindset, and I think what's happened over time as efficiencies have come in, it's actually segregated more people.
If you've allowed it to, yes,
that's what I see.
If you've allowed, I've lived it, so I would say, if you allow it to, yes.
But the majority,
and most times, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. And where does that come from? It comes from the top down.
It comes from efficiencies. Well, the electrician needs 5 days to rough on the floor. Okay. And the electrician's going to say, well, shit, I want everybody else off the floor. Plumber's got to be ahead of me.
See, that's what I mean is they all want to stay in their lane. Nobody wants to interact where it's confusing to me when I get back to a residential site when I was on sites where everybody was engaging with everybody. Whether that was about the work, the scope, the trade, learning, sharing, contributing, helping out, second body, lifting, stuff like everybody was a melting pot working for the objective versus high rise, everybody is segregated.
Well, there's many ways to incorporate that low rise custom home feeling into the high rise, which has been done. And I'm agreeing with you to say, if you choose not to, the probable almost certain future occurs, which is exactly what you're talking about, staying in your own lane, segregation, and COVID certainly didn't help. It keeps people even more isolated. Fuck you, leave me on my own floor.
I think the primary is they're not being paid enough to be nice.
There's that. And let's go back to the other problem. Jonathan can go by himself and build the whole tower of Jenga. And then he's got to deal with Nick that can't even put 2 blocks together because he's the newbie. So if I was in his shoes, I'd be like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm gonna stick to my corner and leave me alone. But I think what we need to also look at is, yes, there's the old school way of doing things. They've built the city, they've built the world, they've built countries. But let's look at Japan. Japan is a collective society. There will be a sinkhole with a subway that got affected. And within 2 days, they'll have 400 construction workers, and it's all patched up. Why? They're not all in their corners. They're all working together to get it done.
Yeah. But to that point, they're not throwing their systems away.
But even before that, they planned that coordination before they showed up on site.
Even if you look at
today's workforce in Canada doesn't do that.
But it's part of their system. So it's not even a function of now I need to take extra steps. This is how we do it.
I know, but we don't see it here in North America. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, going back to the systems too, if even their houses, they all look the same. They're integrated into the community. Yes.
But they're done on purpose by that because they're seeing the value of the square footage of land, right? So you look at how things are It's funny you bring that up because lately I've been looking at, and I think everybody who's listening to the show is I've got such a detest for the definition of sheds in Canada, in North America. I think the shed is the outhouse of construction. It hasn't evolved. It hasn't done anything new. Nobody comes up with any ideas. We every single spring we see at Home Depot the leaning tower of sheds that are being sold for stupid amounts of little money. And the other day I was actually looking at mine and I was like, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And I started thinking about the possibilities of what I can do to create a shed that will actually turn into 500 square feet. And I was using elevations and I was using cantilever and I was using all these other principles that are associated with building normally, but I was applying it to the outhouse of construction, the shed.
It's okay. Fear not. You can return it in 10 years, after 10 years at Costco. When it's leaning over.
Costco will take anything back.
Yeah.
They'll probably even take their employees back. It depends on what they do. But I respect the way they do things because of that. We don't have the collective. So is that falling apart from the executives at the top who are hiring the wrong PMs and the PMs not implementing a mindset of collective? Introducing Alt Labor Solutions, the game changer for contractors and laborers. Are you a contractor needing skilled labor or have labor in need of quick shifts? Or how about buying, selling, or renting tools, material, and equipment? Connect easily with contractors and find resources hassle-free through Alt Labor Solutions online platform. Post job listings with project details, browse public resumes, and choose the right person for the job. Explore their job board for new opportunities and connect with top talent. Alt Labor Solutions revolutionizes the labor industry with a user-friendly interface, secure payments, and a supportive team. Visit them at altlaborsolutions.com and start connecting with other contractors today. This message is proudly supported by the Construction Life. The executives at the top who are hiring the wrong PMs and the PMs not implementing a mindset of collective.
Well, what are they being taught?
It's like we go back to the beginning of this whole show.
Right.
Where is the education coming from? I think it's two schools. It's the old school mindset. They grew up in this, and this is how it's done. Here's the innovation. You've got a pencil that, you can press the lead out now instead of sharpening the pencil. That's the extent of technology, so to speak, right? Or is it the formal educated person who's never sat in a job site? Like not even experienced rubbing elbows with other people that are actually doing work. They're just a computer person in a classroom. Those are both wrong.
Yes.
So
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think they're both wrong. One thing I will say that the States does very well to bring both schools together is they essentially create like a contract of this is how you're going to behave in the workforce. And if you don't like this, get out. You want that white picket
Only
fence?
they did that in the government.
Yeah,
but that's company
I had to say
policy.
it.
That's company mission statement. Like that should come from the top, and it goes right down to the very junior.
Exactly. So
but does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Why do you think why do you think we're on a perpetual cycle?
Because we need to make money and we have to finish this job. Otherwise, we get penalized for a fine that it hasn't been achieved.
Yeah, but if we're all aligned
milestones.
here,
But see, this is interesting because you see it and everybody sees this. But if you ever look at a job description for a project coordinator, a project manager, like the word is it changes based on every organization. One organization you're a coordinator, one organization you're a project manager, doesn't matter. There's more times than not, there's a line in there that says something to the effect of, and whatever else is required for the position.
Yeah.
What the hell does that even mean?
I think people that happens because of the manager word.
Yeah, but then what happens is there's a real gap between, because no two brains are alike. We know that. There's a real gap between what you believe as and whatever else is required and what I believe as whatever else is required. And that's never communicated until shit hits the fan.
But your perception is based off of what? Old school or classroom, right?
My perception, yes, and based off the realities from which the lenses through I see it.
I also think too, it's from an HR perspective, and they always keep everything vague. So if they need you, let's say they hire you at $50,000 a year, and in the job description, there's, like you said, like and more. They keep all those words vague so that down the line, if they need to get more out of you, they'll get more out of you. And if you go and complain about it, well,
it was part of the job anyway.
it's part of the job. I'll give you an example. When I worked at Swiss Chalet, I think I was like 18, 19 years old. So I went to my boss and I said, why am I cleaning the toilet? I'm a waitress. Why the fuck am I cleaning the toilets? That's gross. And then and then in an hour later, I have to go serve someone.
Yeah.
That explains the food.
And then, and then I went online because I was so mad, and I went to look at the job description and what I signed, and all the terms were so vague. Whatever, you know what it said? Whatever you need to do, whatever it is to enhance the guest experience.
Okay, so
Interesting wording.
can we stay here for a second?
Technically, that could be argued, because if I'm a guest and I find out you just finished cleaning the toilets, that's not enhancing my experience. That's doing the exact opposite.
Exactly.
So we know what exists today, right? So the audience that they're saying, yeah, okay. So what do you guys suggest? Here's how you navigate and pivot through that with expectations and boundaries. How do you do that within the project world? Well, it comes from connection with the people on the project. First of all, I learn. You asked. I think one of you said, "How do you know if it's a junior foreman or not?" Well, you learn. You ask the questions. You understand who I'm dealing with. So now I'm going to ask thought-provoking questions to connect with that individual to know how they see the world. From there, we can establish the expectations and boundaries. Here's how to get in touch with me. Here's the best way to get in touch with me. Here's what you can count on me for. Here's what you can't count on me for. Dude, I don't give a shit that, like, I don't know, something.
But if they're keeping everything vague, then you can't really.
As a project manager, have the courage and bravery to level set the expectations and boundaries. Here's where my strengths are. Here's where my gaps are. Right? Call me here. Don't call. ESA. So here's a perfect example, right? I would say this to our project managers, to our foremen. ESA, I don't have the relationship with ESA. I call it, it's a fully automated system.
It's the trade.
Right? It's the trade. Dude, you got the inspector comes and say, you know everything about his family, his life, because you call ESA, man. Don't call the office and say, hey, man, can you schedule the inspection? I can do that for you. It doesn't serve well. You pick up the phone, you call. Here's all the information you need. Here's our account number. Here's the permit number. Here's the inspector's number. If you've got a question, the amount of time, energy, and resources it takes to call a project manager, say, here's my problem, call the inspector, figure this out. Call them.
So this is why the conversation is so interesting, because what you're talking about, Manny, is two worlds that should be working together. Right? And I'm extremely biased in the way I see the solution. Jonathan he's looking at it from that perspective of people need to work better with people. I'm looking at it from that perspective of there's a tool that can help you be better at whatever you do. Erica's looking at it from and correct me if I'm wrong, this is where you would jump in, but there's a more strategic way of using our resources to execute. Right. You disagree?
No, I agree. There's a system that has to be followed, and not that everyone has to be a robot, but everyone's got to stay in line. And when you go off, and it goes back to the AI thing, or even in your project management tools. If you have a system in place, there's predictive AI that's coming out that'll say, hey, listen, okay, I know the procedures and things that we have to do next. It'll automatically just start adding it to the next step that you need to do in your tasks or your projects.
Now, that doesn't mean that, okay, guys, go back to sleep.
Yeah.
It means that, to Jonathan's point, now it helps the flow of communication, because now we can have a conversation about what we have on the table. But that needs to happen. And that's where I think the conversation is interesting, because what we're hoping to get out of this banter, this conversation, is how do we do more of this and less of this?
My question is, at what point did we separate, and why did we separate? What's the cause and effect of separation?
I think that's ego. I think I do it better.
Ego in construction. So every generation of contractor, tradesperson, PM that came in contributed to a greater cause of separation?
I don't know if it's greater. I think, yes, I agree to that. The fact that there is something, I think everybody's heard this one way or another. Maybe it's not said the same, but it's definitely said. Back in my day, we did X. Or you youngins have no idea what. that isn't new. That's
No,
been
no, every
said by
generation
every
says that.
generation. Because for whatever reason, this is the way I do it and it's better. No, this is the way you do it and you know it and you do it better. You do it better. Not that it's better. There are things from the old gen that can't be beat by the new gen and vice versa.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
what I think this conversation is trying to do is bridge the gap. Figure out ways to start thinking about working at all of these different schools and taking a bit of all of the cool stuff, getting rid of the bullshit, and getting back to work.
I think going back to ego too, and we brought this up earlier, is before there was 2 generations on the site. Now you have, well, I don't think the silent generation is on the site, but maybe they're in the office. But you have now 3 to 4. So you have very conflicting mindsets on how to do things. I also think we have a lot of diversity challenges. I've even noticed this in a lot of different office environments. So now the way that you're communicating, or the way that communication was done before, was done essentially through 1 or 2 cultures that understand each other. I'll give you an example. There was a flight coming in from Mumbai in 1950, I think it was like 1951. And the air traffic controller goes, you have to wait. And the guy goes, okay, I'll wait. And he called, and it was landing in JFK. So the air traffic controller goes, so where are you? And the plane was nowhere to be found. Because there's a different, the way that certain people communicate it's very different.
Yeah, the people understand the same words differently.
Exactly.
I can tell you to go fuck yourself. But because we're buddies and I've known you for 20 years, that's almost a term of endearment.
Yeah.
Like, fuck off. Ha, 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 ha. I said that to somebody else, they'll throw a 2x4 at me.
So I think everybody knows I have major problems with diversity challenges. I have major problems with DEI. Major problems with it, right? I have the mindset of that interview with Morgan Freeman and who's the 60 Minutes guy?
Pierre Morgan.
No, the other, I can't remember his name. He retired or whatever. But he asked him, how do we solve racism? And he said, you stop talking about it. And I believe him. I go, you don't, like, I have a United Nation of friends. I never looked at them as different races. So it's like you don't. So when people talk about diversity and challenges, I'll give you an example. I get sent this advert for more people getting into construction. And I'm seeing this advert and they're all actors, right? And like most commercials, specifically in Canada and the US, there's one brown person, one Asian person, one white person. You know what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So ironically, I'm seeing this advert that's being sent to me. I'm at a stoplight and MTO, I don't give a shit. Yeah, I was looking at my phone while I was driving. I look at a construction site that's right kitty corner to me. And I'm looking at all the workers there. And it doesn't look like the advert. So I started thinking, why don't we have adverts that are actually using real tradespeople? And it doesn't matter, technically, you can group Portuguese, Italian, Spanish, Eastern European countries, Croatian, all kinds of countries. They all look white, so to speak. But they're all diverse right there, but they're not diverse in the image that people are trying to push down everybody's throat about diversity. And then the other problem I have is that I understand that there's less than 10% of female in construction on the job site. I understand that. But when you see an image or an advert and there's 3 people on the site and all of a sudden one's a minority, one's a woman, and one's a man, that's not a reflection of construction.
I agree.
But Manny, you want to change construction. Stop talking about it and just invite people to come into construction on the skill. I will always argue the fact that skills have no gender or sex.
Right.
So it's like I get upset about we're shining a light on this diversity thing that it's actually, I think, hurting the industry.
So when I was in marketing, there was this one company that we were doing some social media for. One in Canada and 2 in the US. And the Canadian construction company did exactly what you said, which was we need diversity on all our posts. And the American company, so we kind of use the same stuff for the American company, and they're like, we don't want this. And we're like, why? They're like, this doesn't represent.
Yeah.
And you know what? And the one thing that they said to me was, we don't care who comes on site. Just do the fucking job.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Skills.
And then go home.
You know what I
That's
appreciate
it.
about construction? Their nose for smelling shit
Yeah.
is like no other industry. Corporate marketing and advertising, you almost expect it to be a bunch of shit because I'm selling an image that excites you about being in the corporate space. In construction, there's a software out there right now. They're running 2 ads. One, this girl's never worked a day in her life. You can still see the creases in the vest. The hat, the hard hat is
I think that
brand new.
damages the industry more than it helps.
And it got 3 likes. And then the same company posted somebody on site actually working and showing the tool. And you can tell they were on site. It wasn't, I just showed up. I'm here to shoot a commercial. I was on site. They told me they were coming to shoot today. So, okay, let's fucking do it. And it blew up. And it's because at the end of the day, like you said, it's not about gender or race or sex. It's about, this is a skill I have that I want to apply, and that's it.
Protect your investment one drop at a time. Your home or project deserves the very best when it comes to waterproofing. Trust nothing less than the service that guarantees you peace of mind and lasting protection. Meet Antonio, the expert behind AquaStop Waterproofing. Whether you're a homeowner wanting to keep your basement dry or a contractor in search of a reliable partner, Antonio and his skilled team deliver unparalleled quality and service. From the first site assessment to the final backfill, every detail is handled with precision, ensuring your project is completed on time, on budget, and to the highest standard. Antonio's team doesn't just solve problems, they prevent them. With a proven track record of working with insurance companies, educating clients, and using the best products available, AquaStop Waterproofing offers a solution you can depend on for years to come. Experience the difference with a team committed to excellence. Antonio and AquaStop Waterproofing are your go-to professionals for all things waterproofing. Get in touch with AquaStop Waterproofing today at 647-631-4144 or visit them at www.aquastopwaterproofing.ca. For direct inquiries, email Antonio at aquastopwaterproofing.ca. Let's make sure your property stays safe and sound, rain or shine. This message is proudly supported by the Construction Life. Are we opening up floodgates with having PMs come into this space and all of a sudden they have to factor in 10,000 things and then the one thing is the job? Because they have to be conscious of how they address certain people or how they speak to certain people. Like you said, like a certain comment could be, suggested like that's offensive to me. And I'm like,
I've given up.
So now you the PM role takes a different shape based on the company that person works for.
well, it sounds like it's more of a parent manager.
It's a people manager.
The people, yeah.
But that's what it is. And again, we're circling around the word that is overused, but it's the flow of communication. Mm-hmm. You go back in history all the way up to today, and I imagine the future. The problems we're having is communication. It's the flow. It's the way that we speak to each other. It's the way that we process information and then relay that information.
But everyone's staying in their lane, whether they're staying in their lane to not be responsible if something legally happens where now you didn't do the job correctly, but I never said a word. I didn't say anything.
Yeah, because that's, why? Because corporations are assholes, truthfully. Because corporations will not, unfortunately, there's some shitty corporations out there that don't stand behind
They're people.
their folks, right? Because the minute that I won't, but it just pulls on my heartstrings because it's a real story where, there's a leader who took a stand for the guys doing the work. The gentleman doing the work did something based on the best information he had. Unfortunately, there were executives who saw it differently. And his boss stood behind him and said, you didn't hurt anybody, you didn't do anything wrong. In fact, you did the right job. Unfortunately, optically it looks shitty. You didn't follow the actually, it was true. You didn't follow the policy, right? And all of a sudden, the corporation behind him says, "Well, now we have grounds to dismiss you." Pardon me.
Because he did the right thing, but it went against the grain.
It went against the policy. You didn't follow the step-by-step policy of step A, B, and C,
which is almost practical certainty they didn't know existed.
Because of the vagueness of the job application?
Or
because that policy is sitting in a fucking
it's a
shelf.
It's
a binder. Like, anybody ever see those the safety binder.
I use it when the table is not level and I need something to wedge. It's not, this is some good material. This is great. I'm so glad I got this. That's not happening.
Well, see, the problem I think that is happening is that you try to paint this utopia of construction. And then when they get on construction, they're like, that's not what I thought it was about.
Yeah. And then people don't stick around.
Yeah. And then they'll leave, right? And I think if you paint, why did we get in? Like, we weren't painted the negative image of construction. We were painted a fair representation of construction. We know that this is like the shit.
What did that painting look like, though?
It's different for well, first of all, I guess primarily hard work.
Yeah.
Bottom line, long hours.
Well, what's the value in that? So what excited you about that? Because to your point, Manny, the reason I asked these questions is because I think the picture has changed based on the
limitations that we're putting on every next generation.
Mindset.
Yeah.
So it's about dollars and cents.
Do less and less and less and less and less without getting legal troubles.
Yeah.
But that's not the image of construction.
It's very difficult to do your job and that unless you stay in a box.
The image of a lot of jobs is changing. Even the way it's taught in school, they even have to start adjusting it now. By 2035, the CEO of LinkedIn said the 9-to-5 role in many different industries it's going to be very limited. It probably won't even exist.
So what's going to happen in construction?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a question.
I would totally love to sit in on a class of construction right now today, what they're teaching kids today, and put my hand up.
I'll tell you what's happening. They have a textbook that's very outdated. They're going online to Course Hero. They're finding all the answers. They're going into their exams. They're going, oh yeah, that was A, that was B, that was C, and then they get to their co-op, and it's like they have to learn everything. Yeah. Did you not see the? I think I believe it was a couple days ago. There was 35 international students that were protesting outside of St. Clair College. They got caught cheating. And I don't know what program it was, but they found all the answers online.
And they're protesting that they got expelled?
Yeah. And
too bad, so sad. You got caught.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
So now we're talking about the education system, regardless of what is being taught. It's a business. It's not it's not to the benefit of anyone, really, in my humble opinion. My wife is a teacher. The things I hear about what they teach in school, 30% of it is relevant, and it changes based on the narrative out there. It's not a function of, I need you to learn this because you have a skill that for the next 20 years you should be practicing and honing. No, you don't know what your skill is. I really don't care what your skill is. Learn this, whatever this is, and then you're gonna. By the time you're 17 and 18, you're gonna be expected to master a skill that for the last 20 years we've just been wasting time on. So now go to university or to a college or to a trade school and study this textbook of outdated material instead of practicing what you should be practicing, and then go into the real world and start practicing. And I've never practiced before. I've just been reading a bunch of shit that may or may not be relevant to what I actually need to do. That's not even...
Do you think that causes people to sort of regress and like hide out and do just good enough?
That's exactly what it's doing, because now I am 24 years old. I've been in school learning my whole life, and I'm getting yelled at by somebody who in their generation at 15 was working and figuring it out
Yeah, I was
and
just gonna
failing
say that. So I
and
was-
making mistakes.
So our generation before, how did you get on a job site? It depended on the age you were, and it depended on what your dad, uncle, grandfather did.
Yeah.
You got there for the summer.
But now
I
the
lied
problem
about it. It was
is,
a good, yeah.
how old do you have to be now to be on a job site?
Well, that's the stupid thing.
That's the
If
problem.
a kid is 13 years old and they have skills,
Yes.
and they know how to operate an excavator, get in there.
Exactly.
Do it.
But now
I don't care.
It's a safety.
It used to be
problem.
16. I don't know what it is now because we used to lie about it. How old are you? I'm 16.
yeah,
No,
you're
you're not.
16 today.
Just
Yeah.
for today.
So
I am.
my point with that was that I think there should be a boot camp before you get into a classroom. I'm not dismissing the trade schools, but I think there should be a boot camp first where you get on site.
I think there should be a practicum of regardless what you're doing. You're going to learn.
Not
for
a
this
weekend, not a day thing.
Yeah,
No.
You're going to
This is
learn for
months.
this percentage of time. You're going to practice for this percentage of time because when you get to an age where you need to start paying for bills, making decisions, changing other people's life, having families, which all of this has a ripple effect in society. Be a value, help, bring your skill, bring it to life.
Do you guys have your motorcycle license? Anybody here?
Oh, I'm dying to. but
I used to. I
I'm
let it
scared of
expire.
So I just bring it up because it's funny because it's a 3-day course just to do the course so you can get the test and then you can get your first level, right? Whatever it is in the country that you're doing. But here it is like three-day course. The first day is in classroom. It's like 500 people.
Yeah.
And here's your test and pass it to the next person beside you.
Yeah.
And then you're answering all the questions. A lot of the questions have something to do with the Highway Traffic Act and just safety restrictions and how to drive and common sense traffic understanding, right? Signs and things like that.
Yeah.
But everybody's cheating. The thing is, my point is, everybody wanted to get on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted to get on the bike because
Yeah.
that's where you're going to learn. This stuff,
Just paperwork.
it's just
Let's
paperwork.
Get through it.
So I know what a stop sign is. I know I know all these signs and I know what to do or I know what my hand signals are. But that's irrelevant. That doesn't make me a motorcyclist.
But now there
getting
are
on the road.
benefits of some of the information on that paper. But why not just strip out the benefits, get rid of the nonsense, because I can't justify the licensing fee anymore. You got to feel like you got a course, or at least that's what they think. I think more people would appreciate. You know what? Give me the Coles notes. Let me practice that because I'm actually going to use it on a daily, and get me on the road in a safe environment where if I make a turn incorrectly, there's somebody to actually
But they teach, I
walk
mean,
me
what's
through
one
it.
of the first things they tell you? I took it at Humber College. And what's the first thing they tell you is, it's not a matter of if you drop your bike; it's a matter of when you drop your bike,
yeah,
right?
sure.
Yeah.
You're going down,
and,
doesn't matter.
and that's the thing. Is like, so the whole thing was be prepared for that, and it shifted my mindset, and I actually dropped the bike, but it wasn't even my bike, but. That was shifted the whole mindset of.
That's even worse.
It was my cousin's bike, and that's I think what turned me
shit.
off. But, it wasn't like, I'll never drop the bike. It was like, okay, well, here's how to prepare for it when I do drop the bike. And I'll tell you, when I did drop that bike, I was totally prepared. But we don't do that. To your point is, there's no practicum of like, okay, folks, step on a construction site, smell it, touch it, feel it.
But that's not how it's being sold.
Another example too is, let's say you get into a car accident. They tell you in the book, but when you're in that situation, like I panicked,
Which is
and
natural.
I forgot everything what to do, right? But I would like again, you read and you're not prepared for that situation until it comes.
You guys ever go skydiving?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yeah, on
you
YouTube
read
all the
everything, you practice, you read everything, you sign everything. As soon as I jumped out, I forgot all of it until you realize, oh, hang on a sec, I got to do A, B, C, and then you start doing the whole thing, right?
Yeah, but
I
if you
forgot
jumped
to
out of
put
a
my
plane
hands
10
out.
times, now you're not just
Yeah.
pulling the cord. You're
Yeah.
But I think
Fucking
construction is
trying
the one career option that is more valuable on site than it is in the classroom.
I think
For sure.
a lot of careers are way better without a textbook. Even in marketing, that's what I went to school for. When I got on the job, that's when I learned. I knew the terminology from the books, but that's
Until
about
you
it.
apply it
Yeah,
and
that's
trial
it.
and error and try to figure out what's
so
working.
is there a balance? Because without the knowledge and the skill set in the books,
But here's the thing. Are you educating a whole group of new PMs into the industry that don't really care about the work and they just care about the paper.
Yes. Yes, you are. I mean, that's my...
And I think that's a negative.
That's my opinion, is that, and that's where, you know, you're stepping in and saying, well, great, so we're seeing all these gaps, because that's what's creating is
Are there
gaps.
too many tools out there that are making them appear as if they're amazing PMs because they know how to do these tools?
Maybe so. I'm not sure.
There's that challenge too, Manny, no doubt about it. Like anything, you know, if a hammer will do, you know, use the fucking hammer. But the question I have is, you know, do people feel that the PM gets them away from the tools? I like construction.
Yeah.
But then, but what do you like about construction that makes you...
I think there's two classes of tradespeople. One who love being on site getting dirty and will always do it for the rest of their days, and the ones that can't get out of being dirty fast enough. Those are the two, right? We used to say back in film school days, there's a director's director and then there's an actor's director, right? I was never a director's director. Director's director is somebody who's just literally behind the monitor, talking to the wealthy people, talking to the elites. I'm a actor's director, where it means I'm on site, I'm sitting on a regular box, and I'm talking to people, whether they're crew or talent, right? So I always knew that I was a on-site tradesperson. I couldn't race to get to paperwork.
Do you need both?
You need both. You do, but you can't have one overpower the other. It's a balance. Hey, homeowners and businesses, are you looking for top-notch tile and stone services you can trust and count on? Consider the expert tradesperson behind the Tile Guy GTA, Omid himself. He takes pride in delivering quality service and professional installation on time and on budget. From mosaics to large slabs to custom niches and miters, the Tile Guy GTA has you covered. With years of experience and a commitment to excellence, Omid and the team at the Tile Guy GTA are your go-to professionals for all your tile and stone needs. From full waterproofing solutions of every possible product to the finish grouting details, even a hint of design recommendations when the client needs to hear the truth. Call the Tile Guy GTA today, 647-716-5062, or email them at thetileguy.gta@gmail.com. This message is proudly supported by the Construction Life.
Okay, so now here's the question. Is there a
To
benefit to
achieve good
being
work.
both?
Sorry?
Is there a benefit to being both? Or / can there be both? Can there be a hybrid? I know how to mix it with the elite.
There is, but
I'm
you
also...
know what? The one thing that is the key ingredient to be a successful both version of that kind of PM is time.
So I think that a challenge that has plagued us, and I don't think it's a generation. I mean, it's a newer generation thing for sure. The older generation appreciated that good things came to those who wait. That's not today's generation, or I would say what.
That's why I say time. So
two,
you'll get in. I can't get out of
Yeah.
this job site
Yeah.
fast enough to be a PM where I just have to. I can literally, like, I know a big builder who's partnered with a younger person, and he has the cleanest work boots because he's never on site. He loved being in the office and just handling the PM duties of it, but that doesn't achieve the scope.
So here's a question, right? Is there a disconnect? So I've in my experience, I see that there's a disconnect between the guys in the field and their PM in the office.
Of course there is.
PMs some of them will go in, how's everything going? They don't step on anybody's toes. They just want to be there. And then there are ones that's not my job. My job is coordinating. You know, what's the drawback, the benefit? You know, is there you know, something to be said about being more involved on site? Does it help them be better PMs
Yes,
by
absolutely.
actually?
Yes.
Are you? I mean, that's a hell yeah. That's where the connection comes from. And I want to just take that one level further. Is there's also a piece in between where there's some PMs, and it's not right nor wrong, good nor bad. It's just simply the way it is. Some PMs feel that they do go to sites. Except I'm going to challenge you and say, what do you do on a site? Because if you get out of your vehicle and then go to the site trailer to have a site meeting for an hour and then leave,
That's not getting.
that's not going to site.
No.
And I'm saying this. I love this part of my career. It was like, I'm going to walk 52 stories to the slab, to the deck. Why the fuck would you want to do that? Well, because I want to go see what's going on up there, man. It's the same shit it was all the time. Okay, but you know what happens on the way up? Hey, good morning, Manny. Nice to see you. Oh, I'll stop on this floor, right? I'll do like so. There's the connection piece, right?
I'll give you a story. When I was in Turkey, I got invited to a site, a 32-story, whatever it was, condo being built, right? And you're on the ground floor, and you're discussing the project. And I couldn't wait until the person stopped speaking because I wanted to say, can I go in? And I walked the project. I got more value walking the project than I did discussing the project.
Of course.
Because it's visual.
Yeah.
The drawings are only, they're always going to be 2D.
Yeah.
The other
And,
issue. Oh,
That's
sorry.
a whole nother. They're eventually, they're trying to make them 3D, but it's still not as valuable as, like you're saying, going in, touching, looking, seeing, talking, figuring out what's going to change, what's happening, because I think that brings insight back to the office to say, okay, well, here's some of the things that aren't going according to schedule. It'll help you keep things in line because it now becomes a function of managing expectations. I actually had a conversation on what's happening on site that I didn't know. And this is the other thing. This is where I talk to tools, because is there a way for those PMs that aren't going to do it, that aren't going to go on site? Because
Why don't they want to do it?
No, see, there's no tool out there. You guys call me ignorant or whatever you want to say. There's no tool out there that replaces that. I think there's tools out there that augment that. Hey, based on the information I have in front of me, this is what it shows. How accurate is this, man? Like, we all know the fucking process. You try to bill as much as you can up front to get the money so you can use that money to grow the business. We get all that, right? And so the tool says one thing, and then you've got your job costing means to say, well, it says the project's 50% complete, but if I step on the site, it's 35% complete.
Okay,
Right.
but now to that point, I mean, to augment that the tool helped catch information that otherwise would have gone.
Absolutely,
under
you need
radar.
the tools, and you need to know how to lean into the tools. It's no
Hybrid.
different than giving
So
the
now
guy the
you need
hammer
that.
and said, "Okay, well, bang these screws in." It's the wrong tool.
Yeah, exactly.
The other, I would say, issue is we're talking about the PMs and we're talking about the people on the ground floor in operations, and they're the ones with the hammers. They're the ones building. Then you also have the other piece where you're talking with the engineers and the architects, and that's a whole other piece in itself. As a customer, when I go look at a condo, I get so frustrated. I'll come home, I'll look at the plans. My uncle's an electrician, and I'll say, which buildings are you working on? He'll tell me. He's like, no. You see this plan? He's like, there's going to be a pole right in the middle. I said, how do you know? He goes, because I'm working on it, and they didn't tell you that. And look at the bottom, because there's all these little inscription, all these little like notes
yep.
and hidden fees. I've seen where I've gone to a site, and the condo had a nice rooftop pool. I was like, oh, perfect. They built it. Where's the pool? There's another one I looked at in North York. On the plans, it looked so nice. And then once it was built, I was like, oh, is this Ontario housing? Like, what is this?
Is there not a marketing standards for condos where it's like what you're presenting in marketing literature should match what you're purchasing?
Can I go into this?
Yeah,
this
yeah.
So you want to talk about the role of a PM? I'll tell you. This is how it occurs. Your condo world. Okay, we're awarded a project, electrical scope. You get the scope of work from the developer. My job as a PM, I got to go through that scope of work line by line. Yes, it makes sense. Yes, it makes sense. And there's some things there's a misconception out there where it's, if I mark up the scope of work, I'm going to lose the job, or it's going to create resentment. No, man. It shows that you actually give a damn and that you're very clear. The next step is you get in your vehicle and you drive to the sales center to see what's being sold. Because you know how many times it happens is I walk in the sales center. These are real stories. I'm like, oh, holy shit. There's puck lights in the kitchen cabinets. Who's putting them in? Where are they coming from? Because they're not on the electrical drawings, right? Is it electrically supplied? Is it kitchen cabinet supplied? If they're puck lights, who's drilling the holes? Is there a valance?
Doesn't it fall on the agreement when you make the purchase?
You think so, but there's always gaps, right? So the end
But how do
user,
these gaps come up?
because the end user is given a floor plan of the condo, and it's going to say, and this is a real one. There's another real one. Friday Harbor.
Oh, yeah.
Friday Harbor was a great example. The purchaser was everybody who got a suite was promised a 20 amp electric barbecue for their balcony, provided by the Friday Harbor Corporation.
20 amp?
Yeah, you had to put a 20. You had to put a. It was an 1800 watt electric barbecue, right? So you had to put a 20 amp circuit.
What's an electric barbecue?
Literally a barbecue that's
Got
electric.
a electric burner on it?
No, like a George Foreman type thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
So sold to the
So you
end.
need a receptacle out there.
You need a 20 amp receptacle.
Yeah.
Electrically, it wasn't caught. The electrical designer put a standard 15 amp receptacle through all of
So you
these
can't
units.
plug in any of these.
So you can't plug any of these. As an end user, that's a Terion issue now, right? But as the contractor, you go to the site like, what the hell is that? Oh, every purchaser gets that. What is it? Where do you plug that in?
I think Terrion's name should be changed to Carry On.
Terion is a whole different. So there's tools that augment it. Yes, you allowed me to go on that rant because I think that is tremendously important, because then I take that back.
But that's a legal thing because you're
But
selling
how
a
do-
product that's
Yeah.
not.
So that's the point. How do these two vital conversations sit so far apart?
Who's responsible?
You would think, pardon my ignorance, but I am going to create this marketing based on this information. So let's talk about it, make sure that we're selling the same information. And if we're not, I have a professional here that's going to say, but that's not possible.
Sure, but let's also factor in the human component that the design and sale of units occurs long before the construction plans are finalized. So people shift, there's gaps,
Yep.
right? Who pays for it? Ultimately, it's the folks doing the work, because the developers, the contractors, the GCs pass it down. There's always some sort of clause in that contract that says fit for use or any unforeseeable or so. Guess what? If we didn't see that 20 amp plug in the sales office, we're fucked, right?
Now, let's forget about marketing. Let's think of just the B2B side of things. There's even a disconnect between the engineers,
Sure.
the architect, and the PMs. Look at the 427. That extension of the highway. Do you see all those like bumps when you go down? Like, is that a 30-year-old highway? Because it was just built. Why? And then do you remember during the pandemic, it was on hold.
Yeah.
Why?
So it's almost like they're in cahoots with the automotive world. You know what? Let's build it so that their car is broken within 18 months. You guys got customer
But it's
business.
ironic because
Yeah.
we talked earlier about how the workforce maybe is quiet and sticks to themselves and stays in their lane because they don't want the responsibility left on their doorstep regarding I'm responsible now for that if there's a mistake.
100%. Yeah.
But yet, you have all this big infrastructure construction happening, several mistakes happening on a daily basis, LRT, Metro Links, 427, 410 extension, all these other crap, right? And there's no fear of litigation.
Well, 427 was on hold because of litigation, right?
yeah.
It didn't open because of litigation.
Over what, land?
They didn't pay
I don't
the
remember
bill.
I don't remember the parameters, but
They didn't pay the bill because there was some issues with, again, like those bumps, the lights. You notice how like the lights are low? They're supposed to be higher up. Look at the ramp when you get off. The ramp apparently wasn't supposed to be like that. They did it according to the specs.
So if they built it as per spec, who drew the specs? They're the ones that are responsible.
Well, I
So,
think it's
okay.
the engineers and the architects.
I love what you're going because
Oh, now we're talking about the core of this conversation.
Yeah.
Are you being pimped? Because who's responsible for the function within that project?
yeah.
If I built it exactly the way I was spec'ing it out because that's what I priced it out to be, then how am I at fault? I'm not.
Because it doesn't work that way.
And it's not. This isn't the first highway to ever be built. It's 2024. So if you guys made a mistake because you wanted to draw something differently, then we built it exactly how you asked us to draw it. It's not the workforce's fault.
It ends up in litigation that way, right?
But
Yeah.
I think the workforce is saying something, and they're screaming at them, saying, "Hey, listen, like whatever your plans
Because
is,
they haven't
like,
been paid, right?
I wouldn't even just say not necessarily haven't been paid, but while they're working on it, I think that they are saying, hey, listen, like we can't do this because like look at this, and like no, keep going. This is what the plan says, and then the PM is in the middle. They're going back and forth, and then you have that problem.
But you're probably getting the old school generation who's already built this several times saying, this isn't correct. I'm just speaking up. But They have to be building it the way it was spec'd. Maybe it's a new technology. Maybe they don't want to question it. Well, we're going to build it exactly the way it's spec'd. So it's not the workforce. Yeah, I agree with you. It's the architect, engineer, PM. It's the construction company who bid it and got the job, and they decided to build it this way. If they did it to do it this way to save costs, then that's not the workforce's fault. Are you ready to transform your kitchen or bath into something exceptional? Natalia Pierce, Certified Master Kitchen and Bath Designer, CMKBD, from Detail by Design, Ottawa's go-to kitchen and bath design specialist, is here to help you do just that. Natalia doesn't just design spaces, she creates life solutions with precision, ensuring every detail meets your vision and stays within your budget. From first-time clients to those returning for their next project, Natalia values every opportunity to create functional spaces tailored to your unique needs and designed to last through many life stages. She's also excited to collaborate with new tradespeople and builders, bringing fresh ideas and expertise to every project. Whether you're a homeowner looking to upgrade your space or a tradesperson eager to work with a design pro, Natalia expertly balances satisfying challenges with beautiful results. Ready to start your journey? Reach out to Natalia Pierce at natalia@detailbydesign.ca or call her at 613-299-6464. Let Detail by Design guide you to a space that's perfect in every way. This message is proudly supported by the Construction Life.
No, you're not blaming the workforce. You're talking the folks actually laying the road, doing the road.
Yeah, because I think what happens is that we're segregating everybody again. Nobody's contributing, going back to the analogy of everybody collectively working together at the problem. This should have been seen in the workforce. Like the old school guard should have looked at this going, this ain't right. This ain't right. Why is it drawn like this? So this is exciting because then this is where I think of tools like Revolute come into play, where now you can create that platform where you have where can I capture the lessons learned, the standard operating procedures, the ways that the road could be built and has been built in the past, right? And then compare that to what's actually there. We're not doing that anymore. Now it's like, we'll build it to the plans and specs. Well, you and I know, we just had this conversation about so many things that are being put into construction that don't need to be put into construction right now, that are confirming my fear that more people are not getting into construction because they're adding all these things into the fucking cake mix. When all they really want to do is build. They want to be part of a team that builds. That's why you get into construction. Whether that's in the office and you drew it, you engineered it, you spec'd it, you managed it, or you built it. Everybody on that line wants to build. But there's so many things being thrown at them to factor in that have nothing to do with build. So what do you mean? So then people are not getting into construction. What do you mean is like being thrown into the cake mix that's too much? There's responsibilities. The biggest fear of small workforce, the bottom end people, if you don't do it correctly, then we're not going to pay you. You lost the money. You've already fronted all the materials, so now we're not going to pay you. Now you got to fight them or walk away from the job. Right. And now you've got a shit list of a builder that's on your list, right? I'm not going to work with that person again. That happens on the daily. It's probably happening right now. Someone right now is filling out an email saying, fuck you. You know what I mean? And they're taking care of that problem. So they keep on adding these things into this mix that makes somebody leave the industry. We just want to build.
I even think too, there is a passion behind everything. There's a passion behind building. There's whatever your trade that you're going into. But now, what you just mentioned, Manny, with all that bullshit, if I was someone that was 18 years old, I would think too, you know what? I'm going to start something online. I'm my own boss and I don't have to worry about all this stuff. Or you know what? I'm going to go on OnlyFans because look how much money I can make.
Well, here's a good point. I would not enter construction today.
You'd go on OnlyFans.
If I was an 18-year-old kid right now and I knew what construction was really about, I would not enter construction right now. I'm like, fuck this. I'm not playing this game.
Because your biases are suggesting what?
No, I'm suggesting there's too much bullshit in construction.
But at 18, would you know that?
If I was smart enough to do enough research and I started speaking to a bunch of older people and all this other crap, and I listened to every single one of these episodes, I would look at it and going, I'm not getting into construction. I'm going to go someplace else because I think I could thrive elsewhere. There's too much resistance, I think, today.
Wow, that just painted a picture in my head. Like, and if that occurs,
No, that is
Yeah,
occurring.
I was.
That is going on. I'll tell you that right now. That is going on.
You got to think, folks.
I have a problem with like
thinking implosion.
there's certain grants that are only being given to DEI.
Yeah.
You're eliminating white people.
Oh my God.
And I go back to the Europeans, Eastern Europeans, all the other people, South Americans. You're eliminating them.
But I think for this year, so they put a hold on international students.
Those students were not going into construction to begin with anyway.
Okay, you wanna hear the latest scam?
What's that?
So some of them were coming to Canada. They would go into one program, and then they would. Some of them are going into trades, and they'll do one program to keep their PR. Then they'll go into another program, and then they'll go into another program, and they're all doing it in the skilled trades because it's pretty much free right now with the grant. So that's why this year they stopped it.
But if you're a white guy, you have access to none of these grants.
Now they do.
You do now?
You do now.
So if you're
This
an
year
Eastern
you do.
European, broken English, and you love Makita tools, you can get in and get grants?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to hear that.
The enrollment rate this year for international students is down by 45% because they're not allowing them to come in because they're pulling all this bullshit. Like I
But
said,
that's been going on for how long now? Until
because
now,
they
just
catch on
stopped.
things too late.
Yeah.
They're too late. They're too slow.
But the real problem is that the ones that are training or learning, taking the programs, are they getting into construction? Are they getting jobs? And I go back to, I saw that construction site and I looked at the workforce. I saw immigrants there, but I didn't see the immigrants that were portrayed in the advert.
Right.
I think it's even the same if you're in an office. If you go to Bay Street,
Probably.
and if I go down to the food court, it's pretty much all white people. It's not the same landscape you see in a multicultural classroom.
Would you guys enter construction at 18 if you were 18 today, knowing what construction is today?
I did enter construction, and I did it much later with the but I also entered it from a different perspective. So would I go into a trade? No, but not because of the red tape and bureaucracy, because I still believe that it's a fundamental service on to the planet. But I went at it from I understand the business development. I understand what technology can do to help. So that's where I went at it from. I didn't go at it. I understood my skill set and I applied it to an industry I love, as opposed to, so it's hard for me to say that I wouldn't get into it because I have, and I was never great at it. That anybody who's ever worked with me will tell you exactly.
No, but
the
nobody's
same.
ever great at it in the beginning. I've never met a great tradesperson.
I like 2 left hands, 2 right feet.
Yeah, but that
not
eventually
good at
gets
it.
better, right?
Yeah, you would think. And so, I was given the advice: use your brain, because your hands, they're not working.
Here's the other problem that I have with a lot of the mindset of construction and entering the construction industry. It's always about getting people boots on the ground. And we keep forgetting that there's an entire world of people, kids, that have smart ideas, technology-wise, computer-wise,
So many
programs,
cool ideas,
or just creating chips that will make machinery better or more like all this tech side of things. We never show an image of getting into the trades by getting a student into learning and understanding the technical side of components of construction.
Yeah.
Like we see the videos of concrete walls being built by an AI robot and all this other shit. But I want to see a kid who's going to take that and go and incorporate insulation into that wall now. Figure out how you're going to run conduit for electricians and plumbers. You don't need to be boots on the ground for that. You need to be in a classroom dissecting structures, looking at drawings and figuring out how do we build a structure this way? How can we improve it better? How do we learn to build this?
And how to make it simpler. It's interesting.
That's getting into the construction industry without getting on the trades. You don't need the hard hat. You don't need the safety vest, but you're contributing to construction.
Because, that's not sexy, so it's not being sold. So,
but it's needed.
I understand that. But that's, again, disconnect in communication or education for that matter. It's people aren't studying something for what's needed. They're not applying their skill to a problem. It's, I need to make money. Somebody told me that this was a good idea. Education is supporting that model or that narrative. So now I am going to buy into it because I'm a kid and I'm going to listen to my adults or to the adults, and now I'm going to listen to the system because it's been around longer. And this whole perpetual problem that most people, and I think right now there's a real problem of, a bunch of 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds that are miserable with what they do for a living because now they understand, after having their hands full of something that they just can't fathom for another day for 10 years, they're saying, what the fuck did I do?
Here's the other piece of it. So I agree. When you're in the school system, that's what you're told is you're going to be an employee for your whole life. You're not gonna change the world. Just do something that makes money and call it a day.
Well, that's what education was built for in the first place. It was to train factory workers on how to stay in line.
Stay in line and pay the most taxes as much as possible. Now, when I created my patent, that was a bitch and a half. That was like, it felt like Mission Impossible. People, if depending on your mindset, they're not going to do what most people do and invent something and put together a business and do this and do that. They're just like, you know what? One path, I'm going to make my money. I'm going to get my house. They follow that trajectory, and that's it.
And it's safe. Back to the bunny ears. I've been tying my shoes this way.
Yeah.
We've been learning this way. By the time you're 4 years old, you're going into school. Now, instead of learning how to be creative, failing, making mistakes, asking questions, communicating, it's, here's a phone. You got to learn how to use these tools. This is the material you're going to be studying for the next 14 to 18 years. And we'll see you on the other side.
But technology and efficiency-wise, there's so much opportunity for anybody who wants to come into construction.
Yeah.
Of course.
There's a whole evolution going on, right, in every single trade aspect. So if this younger generation doesn't want to get their hands dirty or their feet dirty, they should be looking at every trade and figuring out what can be improved.
This is what's going through my head as you guys are talking, and thank you for letting me intercept this unexpectedly, is what if we were all wrong? What if we thought for a second, how do we educate our children of today to think differently, to ask the questions like, what are the pain points, or how do we take...
Are they not doing that already?
I'm not sure that... maybe they are, maybe they're not.
I don't talk to that many young kids.
Right, but how do we... It gets back to how to make a buck, but how do we even take the technology that exists today and bring that forward? Here's an example. I was at a conference in Portland, and I was sitting beside a gentleman who worked for HP. And when I didn't even know HP was really still around, and they're actually still doing inkjet printers, which I didn't even know were still around either, because I thought the laser had taken over. But what they actually have done construction-wise, why he was at this convention, was think of the RoboVac, the robot thing that sucks up all the thing.
Yeah.
HP has invented that robot type thing that's 2 feet by 2 feet, and it sits on a construction site, and it goes and it does all of your grid lines for you and all of your interferences. So it takes away from all of the chalk lines that get washed away in the rain and the snow, and they get...
But someone invented that.
Somebody invented that because, to your point, it doesn't have to be boots on the ground. It has to be, how can I take something and...
The government's not endorsing this. They're not talking about it.
We need to bring back the science fair that happened
man.
every year.
Yeah.
100%
Do you
you
remember
do.
those big cardboard
And you make the
construction
you make the volcano, whatever it is. You pick something, and at least you learn
don't
about
do
a
that?
process.
I didn't know they didn't do it anymore.
No.
That was like a highlight. That was huge.
Volcano one year, back in elementary school.
Came from a different school.
Oh, baking soda and vinegar, man. I was like,
Yeah.
ooh. Now we
Yeah.
use it to clean everything.
Yeah.
Little did I know when I built that volcano, you're going to be a good cleaner. No, but okay, shop class and a science fair, I agree with all this shit. But
I had to take shop class.
But
I had to build a robot.
It stopped after.
But I don't think
Yeah.
these kids are being sparked to think about opportunities in construction. They're just being asked to consider construction. and their
That's
image
also-
of construction.
So construction, and this is where, this is a good point, because construction is. Let me change directions here. Is construction helping the narrative? Because somebody has to be saying,
Wait a minute,
we need
what
more.
level of construction are you asking?
Take this broad picture, and now I need more workers. Is construction saying we need more innovation? So I need you guys to start pushing a narrative of.
Attention homeowners and businesses. Are you looking for top-notch electrical contracting services you can trust? Consider the expert tradesperson behind Effect Electric Ltd. They take pride in delivering quality, service, and professional installation on time and on budget. From Kohler generators to main service upgrades or network data installation, they do it all. With years of experience and a commitment to excellence, Carlo and his team at Effect Electric Ltd. are your go-to professionals for all your electrical and generator needs. Effect Electric Ltd. is an authorized Kohler home energy generator dealer. Kohler has air-cooled 26 RCA units, the quietest, the most powerful, and exceptionally durable generator with 109 amps max power on liquid propane. Custom color options, camouflage options, and every generator Kohler makes is built to last and is equipped with a commercial-grade engine. Call Effect Electric Ltd. today at 416-508-7725 or visit them at effectelectricltd.kohlergeneratordealer.com. Let's build something great together. This message is proudly supported by the Construction Life. We don't need more innovation. We need more efficiency.
Okay. It's still an innovation of
Yeah.
what's happening now.
Yeah.
There are a lot of companies that are extremely efficient using pencil and paper.
Yeah.
But we also know that if you give them a tool that speeds up the pencil and the paper, we don't have to take your pencil away or your paper away. But now we're just going to give you a tool that, like a suit of armor, gives you that extra edge. The point is, though, that's a narrative that has to start from the industry looking for that innovation, looking for that efficiency. So is it happening? Does it need to happen? Because if construction said to the government, we need more of this, I don't want to rely so much on my back.
There's a problem. It's the government telling construction this is what you need.
Yeah.
Okay.
We never asked. We
Now,
never
should
asked
they?
the government what we needed.
So is that a narrative that should be started?
100%.
That's Manny's whole point is the government's not asking construction folks, what do you guys need? They're saying, oh, you need this. But you have no fucking clue, man. You're not asking.
They're not, or maybe they're asking the wrong people. And I think
They're asking people.
Wow.
the perception is also
this
that
is why I kept it high level.
I think the perception that the government's painting is that get into construction because you can be a PM within X amount of time, making X amount of money.
So they're pushing that
but
narrative.
that's bullshit.
Stay in the office because this is better.
So, okay, the government's now saying to developers, you need to build 5 million homes because we have X amount of people coming into the country. Where are the resources to do that and to do that fast? And the developers are now saying, well, we don't have the resources. So
There should be, take your science fair idea. There should be a building in Canada. Actually, there should be 3. One west, one central, one east, where it's a science fair building. And you throw people in there and you go, here's a wall, make it better. Here's a roof, make it better.
So you know what Canada's Wonderland does? At the end of the year, they will get a bunch of students from schools and they will create the next roller coaster.
Great.
Wonderland will take that idea,
That's cool.
and whoever wins, it turns, if they have the funds for it, it turns into a roller coaster.
Well done on the market research and development.
That makes sense.
Free labor. It's genius.
Why not encourage, like you just said, like with the wall? Why not encourage?
Because I think if you get this younger thinking, or even older, that have ideas, like we've had a drywall guy in here, he's in his 70s, and he came up with this new technique for drywalling for corners. And it took him 40 years of being in the industry to figure this out, and he figured it out. So if you've got an innovative idea, then it's a think tank. You drop them in there, and you go, here, this is what I think we should do.
But that's exactly what Wonderland is doing. It's saying, let's throw a bunch of creativity at this and see what comes out of it.
Yeah.
And take it and run with it, because now we're mixing two worlds, because they're not. It's not like, okay, guys, here's all the material you need for the roller coaster, and we'll open the gates. We open at 9. It's experience, an old school mindset, a way of doing it, and we're bringing in the new gen, bunch of creativity, and mixing them together in a pot that makes magic.
And then it comes back to your point. Now, then, from that point on, construction professionals now have the exact insight to say to those in power, here's actually what we need. Whether you want to listen or not, it's a different conversation, but here's what we actually need, right?
They won't listen.
Yeah.
And even before you get kids to go into that building and start coming up with ideas, the first question on the admin form is going to be where you're from.
Right.
That's irrelevant, where you're from. Where did you get this idea? I want to know where the idea came from. I don't care where you're from, culturally speaking, race speaking, sex speaking. I don't care.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. That's the gatekeeping that's going on with the agenda, right? So that's what we need. We could do that. You could be in the forefront where you can listen. I go to trade shows and I'm in awe where I'll see something interesting, a new product, and my first question is, obviously, I have not seen this in Canada. Where's it from? And then they'll tell me halfway around the world. We're using these in all these places, in these cities right now. I just shared a post of some little metal caddy in a shower, and electricians or plumbers are reaching out to me. Manny, where did you see this from? I was going, dude, it's not in Canada, but as far as I know, you can buy it in Croatia, Slovenia, and Austria. So if you got, I don't know, I would go to trim guys, electricians maybe, roofers, siding guys, and ask them if they still have family in one of those countries and get them to ship it to you from there. Because it's a clever idea, and it's not here in Canada.
Or you can even find an agent. If you do plan on selling it, you find an agent. They get customs. You bring it over.
But my whole point is that we're looking too narrow. I go back to the tradesperson in their line. The Canadian construction industry is looking too narrow. I'm all about what the fuck is Finland doing right now? What the fuck is Japan doing right now in construction?
That's why I brought up Japan.
We should be looking at how do they build their like we all seen China build an overpass in 24 hours. We've seen it happen.
Okay. I'm throwing something at you, Manny, because you're talking about forward thinking. You're talking innovation. You're talking making things better. To the generations or mindsets that like the way that it is, how do you get them to start having those conversations? Because we're talking about 3 or 4 generations, and some of those generations, if I've been doing it like this for 40 years. Fuck you, innovation.
Great, wonderful. You're not the person to use this.
Yeah. What if I don't care? They're going to become extinct eventually. Either they're
then don't use it. Like construction is really simple. This person doesn't use it, then you get his buddy to use it, and guess what? This person is going to eventually use it.
I also just want to wheel back here. To get an invention approved in Canada.
Is it ridiculous?
Yeah. So
they don't want new inventions.
The U.S.
pulling hair and teeth.
Took me 2 years. Canada took me 4. 4. It was double the time. Why?
Because of their standards?
Because of their standards, they're slow.
Processes, their systems.
The processes they don't
bureaucracy.
want. So again, now, like you said, we're narrow-minded. There's not that mine's in the construction industry, but people are inventing things, and they're taking goddamn forever.
It's true.
But these are problems. So now you have...
So you invent it elsewhere and then get it on a platform that you could purchase it here.
But now, this is again, it goes back to having a forum and a place to be able to promote these ideas and start the conversation around the potential, because it's so much easier to become discouraged and just say fuck it, because if I got a 4-year process, I got the best idea in the world.
That's why I say that about the trade force.
And that's the thing too. When Canada didn't approve mine, I said fuck you. And I went to the States and I started working on it over there. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to hire any Canadians. I'm going to hire Americans. I'm going to do this. Because then I got mad.
I would do the exact same thing, because it makes no sense. We should be innovating. We should be having these opportunities and building these opportunities for anybody who wants to get into this industry. But we're not doing it. That's why I keep saying that you're preventing good people from coming into this industry. And when they do get in, they're being told how it works. Don't rock the fucking boat and don't get in trouble and just build and do what you're told to do. Don't contribute, just do.
It would be great. I don't know if you guys have been playing around with this idea, but a phone in the middle of the room and actually getting guys and gals that are at project level involved in this conversation to say, okay, now how would you innovate? How would you come up with the solution to this? What ideas do you have?
They're doing that. I did that in my first year of construction. I always questioned the status quo. I said, like, I never did scratch code. Scratch code was the complete norm. Then I discovered that scratch code was a Toronto thing. It was an old school thing. It's the only thing to do. Scratch code at 1 inch thick dry pack works. There's a country called Italy that actually did the entire fucking country that way, right? But in Canada, you dumb it down to just skimming mud over scratch code. That doesn't work. So then every single project I ever did was done with a German uncoupling membrane. So I looked into research and I started figuring out, and then I questioned the next thing. Then I questioned the next thing. So if you got an idea, I would go to a company that is in that space, and I would go, listen, I've got this idea. You guys can't fucking steal it from me, but I want you guys to produce it, and then they get it in because they're already in the space. You can do that.
So, but now this is where, so to that point, that's why I say it's a good idea for TCL, because Manny is a place where that information is now discussed and not shunned away. Because I don't want your fucking idea. Go back to work. I've heard Jonathan talk about it way too many times, where it's, I need you to do this, and we'll talk about it later. But I think if, to your point, I'm not going to do that, but he starts doing it, so maybe I'm going to start thinking about it. If we create that narrative of, I have this idea, but I was told to fuck off. Well, why do you think you were done? Well, that's the way it is. And
I get the sense that the majority of PMs are like that too. They're in their wheelhouse, and then their objective is to get the task at hand done. If someone comes along bright eye and like, I've got an idea, sir, miss. No, I don't care about your fucking idea. This is the scope. This is what I need done. Shut up. Move on.
Agostino is
not the right way to do it.
Agostino's a perfect example. I wish he was here. He was never told Agostino's never told me a story, and if he was here, maybe he has them. But he's never told me a story where he was downplayed. But he was expected to figure it out. So if he ever wanted to craft or create or come up with a more efficient way to solve a task, that was up to Agostino. But I also know that if Agostino's also the type of guy that does the research, but if he had somebody or he had a channel that gave him that information or sparked the idea down the path of, oh, well, this shit's possible.
I think that happens in certain trade schools. I think certain trade schools, you get a circle of people that have the same mindset, and they're spitballing ideas between each other. And then they try to get some traction. If they get some resistance from it, it depends on how much resistance they get before they say, fuck it, I'm done, I'm tapping out, I'm not going to keep on.
But how do you create mass adoption?
At my sites, I always encouraged it. I just said, there's no fucking stupid idea. Just come up with a new idea. Here you go. Unfortunately, I was always the guy that was coming up with new ideas and trying new ideas and figuring out how to do it. And then that's how you figured, and then people started copying it. And I'm like, go ahead and copy it. I don't give a shit. If you're a one idea person, then you don't belong in any industry. Mm-hmm. Right? How do you guys want to wrap it? We got to wrap it up, but this has been a good conversation.
It was great.
It's been fun.
What did we learn about PMs?
A lot of moving parts. A lot of fucking chaos.
A lot of gaps.
Where are the majority of PMs coming from these days? Academic or site? I'm going to guess academic, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have the data to analyze that for sure. I think my bias is suggesting that is academia based, and being connected to the Project Management Institute.
Because it's the fastest way to get away from tools.
I'm getting a bit of both, actually. I have a lot of conversations with both sides of the table, all looking at the same problem. The new school is, I know there's a way to do it more efficiently, and I want to be able to keep things within a box. The old school is saying, I know it can be done more efficiently. I want to get home a little bit quicker, so I help me do what I do, and so I can enjoy my life.
I think
there's that.
Yeah, and there's some gaps too with regards to a tradesperson, especially if it depends on who you're pulling in. If you're pulling in a seasoned veteran, they have to really adjust their lifestyle compensation wise, time, energy, resource wise, and it's not lucrative anymore, right? Unless they're injured.
I'm getting in my conversations. Neither of those schools. I'm getting frustrated. There's gaps and there's a lot of unknowns. And there's a lot of things that are not communicated between all three of the levels: operation, management, and executive.
Yeah.
And it needs to change.
Share your information
Great
once
place
more
to end it.
before we get out of here.
Jonathan Sinelli, People First Leadership, JC at jonathansinelli.com. Thanks for listening.
Erica Jujo, Business Optimization Specialist, the Erica Jujo.
Nick Bartella, Revelate. Instagram will be revelate.inc, revelate.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
That was
you.
great, guys. Thanks so much. I think we should continue this conversation on this specific. I still want to know what the I stands for in PIMP.
There is no I.
There's an
Yeah,
I.
it's PMP.
No,
Yeah.
hold on. The real pimp.
Yeah.
Let's see.
What do you mean the real pimp? That pimp is an acronym for something?
Yeah.
Is it really?
I didn't know that.
Who knew that? I don't know.
Yes.
What?
I didn't know that. It's got to be a 70s
It's
term.
1,000%.
It has to be a 70s term.
Yeah.
Put in my pocket.
That makes sense.
Okay, I got it.
That makes sense.
Is that the clean version? That doesn't feel
Hold
right.
on.
Put in my pocket.
Let me go to Urban Dictionary. Hold on a second.
Listen, there's two classic pimps in cinema. If you haven't seen them, I'm gonna get you, sucker. It's a classic pimp with the fishbowl heels, and the other one is Milk from Bachelor Party, which is another great pimp. Watch those these weekend if you want. What is the Urban?
It didn't come up. I'm just gonna put what.
Don't worry, Siri will tell you eventually. They're having conversations.
That's
about
probably,
pimp.
you could probably do that.
Anyhow, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Yes.
That was great. Always good to see you guys. Thank you. We're out of here.